The judge, who mocked the silent teenager in court, was shocked when the young man spoke up. The courtroom was packed, a cold and austere chamber where the weight of justice felt more like armor than shelter. The judge, with a piercing gaze and biting voice, sat high on his bench like a king on his throne, ready to wield words like a sword. His reputation for sarcasm was well known, and today would be no different. He cast a disdainful look at Alex, a teenager with big, tired eyes, who could barely stand. The young man's heart raced, each beat a reminder of the weight of what he was about to face. "So we have the famous silent here, don't we?" the judge said, pouring irony into his words like red wine. Muffled laughter echoed through the room, and Alex felt his stomach churn. He was there to talk about the harassment he had endured for years, but the words felt like an insurmountable maze. His mother beside him held his hand tightly, her eyes filled with love and concern, as if she wanted to transfer all her courage to him. "Are you feeling okay, kid? Or do you need a glass of water to perk up?" the judge continued with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. The jabs were like daggers, and Alex wanted to shrink away, to disappear into the marble floor beneath his feet. But then, something changed. Inside Alex's chest, where there had only been an echo of fear, a small flame began to burn. He recalled the sleepless nights, the hidden tears, and the whispered talks about courage. His mother's hand squeezed his, and in that touch, he found a thread of hope. He took a deep breath, feeling the cold air of the courtroom fill his lungs. I'm not just a silent." His voice, initially hesitant, strengthened as the words flowed out. The judge, surprised, raised an eyebrow, but did not interrupt. "I am Alex, and I'm here because no one should go through what I went through." The room, once filled with laughter and sarcasm, was now silent. The glances had shifted. There was a palpable expectation in the air. Alex felt the energy in the room change, as if the world around him was leaning in to hear him. "I was called horrible things at school. I was pushed, isolated, and many times I just wanted someone to see me. But I'm still here, and I can't let this continue." He looked directly at the judge, and in that moment his vulnerability transformed into overwhelming strength. "What happened to me isn't just a joke, it's real, and I want everyone to know it." The judge, who had seemed so self-assured before, was now visibly shaken. The sarcasm had vanished from his face, replaced by an expression of consideration. "Go on, Alex," he said, his voice now softer, almost respectful. Alex took a deep breath once more, now feeling the adrenaline coursing through his veins. "I know that many teenagers go through this every day, and if I don't speak up, if I don't fight, nothing will change. I want the school to know that bullying is not a joke and that it hurts. It really hurts." Alex's words echoed in the room, and he saw the faces around him change. Some people looked moved, others shocked. But everyone was listening, and for the first time, he felt he had control of his own story. The judge leaned forward, his eyes now filled with an understanding that had seemed absent before. "You are very brave, Alex, and your words have power. What you said here today can make a difference." Alex's mother, with tears in her eyes, smiled at her son, her pride overflowing. He had found his voice, and no matter what happened next, he knew he had done the right thing. In that courtroom, amidst the pain and struggle, Alex became more than a silent teenager. He became an advocate, a symbol of hope for all those who had ever felt invisible. The courtroom buzzed with murmurs, whispers echoing like echoes of collective pain. The judge, with his imposing robe and a look of disdain, regarded Alex as if he were a badly rehearsed actor. The prosecutor's words reverberated in the room, each one sharper than the last, while Alex sat curled up in his chair, fingers intertwined, and voice trapped in his throat. The testimonies were like waves rising and falling, carrying fragments of shattered lives with them. Alex listened to each account with a weight in his chest, recalling the days when his peers' laughter turned into mockery, and promises of friendship faded into betrayals. School, a maze of insecurities, had become a battlefield where he fought, against ghosts that seemed more real than anyone around him. "Look at him, he can't even open his mouth," the judge remarked with a sarcastic smile, causing the room to laugh. The mockery cut like a knife. But inside Alex, something began to ignite. a flame of resistance. He remembered Leo, a new friend he had found amidst the chaos, a boy who knew the pain of being invisible and offered him a genuine smile on a grey day. "You're not alone," Leo had whispered once as they walked home together, the words, refuge in the storm. "We all have our battles. Don't let this define you." And there, sitting in the courtroom, Alex looked at Leo, who was in the audience, his encouraging eyes shining like beacons. The teenager took a deep breath, feeling the weight of hesitation dissolve. He looked at the judge, who still seemed amused by his apparent fragility, and decided it was time to break the silence. I want to speak," his voice emerged, trembling, but determined. The murmur in the room ceased instantly, all eyes turning to him. The judge raised an eyebrow, surprised but not disappointed. "What do you have to say, young man?" he asked, the irony still present in his tone. Alex stood up, his heart pounding in his chest. "I am not just a boy who can't speak. I am someone who has been through things you can't imagine. What you see is just a fraction of who I am." He felt everyone's eyes on him, a mix of curiosity and amazement. "At school, I was the target of jokes of laughter that echoed in my ears like a nightmare. But that does not define me. What defines me is my ability to rise up, to find friends who truly care, like Leo." The judge, who had previously mocked him, now observed with an expression that mixed surprise and a hint of respect. "Go on," he said, a bit more serious, as the room remained in absolute silence. Alex took a deep breath, feeling the adrenaline coursing through his veins. "Every word you've heard here today comes from pain and struggles, but also from overcoming. I'm stronger than you think, and more importantly, I am not alone. There are many of us young people facing the same kind of pain who need support, not ridicule." The judge now seemed like a different man, his hardened expression beginning to soften. "And what do you propose, Alex?" he asked, his voice calmer, almost reflective. "That we can be heard. That we can find a safe space where we are not ridiculed but valued. That pain be not a reason for laughter, but a call to action." Alex felt the energy in the room shift, the gazes transforming from judgment to understanding. "I know I am not perfect, but I am here, and together we can make a difference." And in that moment, the silent teenager was no longer invisible. He had become a symbol of hope, a voice echoing in the courtroom, reverberating in every heart present. The judge, once cynical, was now paralyzed, but the spark of determination from Alex illuminated the room like a beacon, showing that even in the deepest shadows, the light of courage can always shine through. The courtroom was charged with palpable tension. The judge, with a cynical look and lips curled into an ironic smile, barely concealed his disdain for the teenager who, in silence, occupied the victim's bench. The murmurs in the room were like distant echoes, distorted by the indignation that grew with each word uttered by the aggressor, who perched in his ridiculous defense. The young man, Alex, listened to the lies being spun in front of him, each one a blow to his chest. When the aggressor's testimony ended, the judge's laughter resonated like thunder, cutting through the heavy air of the courtroom. Alex clenched, his fists under the table, his heart racing frantically. The indignation burned within him, a flame that could no longer be contained. The silence stretched like a taut rope, and he knew it was his turn. With a sudden movement, Alex stood up. The courtroom fell silent in a snapshot of disbelief. All eyes turned to him, and the judge, still smiling, raised an eyebrow, expecting a weak speech like the previous ones. But Alex was no longer the quiet boy everyone knew. His voice, initially trembling, began to resonate through the room, each word laden with emotion. "I am not a statistic," he began, the strength growing in his tone. "I am Alex. I am the boy you mocked, the one you belittled, and I am here to speak the truth." His eyes sparkled with determination, and he saw the judge's expression slowly change, the mockery fading away. "You may laugh at me, you may try to silence me, but every laugh you make only makes me stronger. I am not the only one going through this. There are many like me, many who do not have the courage to stand up. What you do is not just an act of violence, it is a crime against humanity. It is to dehumanize others." The judge, now in attentive silence, watched Alex's every move. The atmosphere in the courtroom was changing, as if a storm were brewing. The jurors exchanged glances, some with expressions of astonishment, others with newfound respect. Alex continued, his voice now firm and resonant. "I have spent sleepless nights reliving every insult, every blow. I wondered why I wasn't enough, but today I understand that I was never the problem. The blame is not mine. The blame lies with those who put themselves above others, who think that the pain of others is a joke. Life is not a competition of who can be the cruelest." The judge suddenly seemed small in the face of the young man's words. He was in a position of power, but in that moment, Alex had taken control of the room. The young man turned to the aggressor, who was in a corner, visibly unsettled. "You may have tried to break me, but I am here. Instead of destroying me, you only gave me more determination. I will not let you define who I am. I am more than your words. I am more than your violence." As he finished, the silence in the courtroom was deafening. Alex took a deep breath, feeling the adrenaline coursing through his veins. The judge, who once reveled in others' pain, now wore a serious expression, his mind troubled by a new reality. The young man had challenged not only his authority but also his beliefs. The judge began, his voice lower, almost hesitant. "I had no idea the impact this had on you." The words floated in the air like an attempt to fix what was broken. "Let's hear more." Alex smiled shyly, not from happiness, but from relief. He had stripped away the truth in front of everyone, and at that moment, he felt free. The courtroom was no longer just a place of judgment. It was a space where a teenager's voice could truly make a difference. As the judge prepared to hear more, Alex realized he had planted a seed of change, and in his heart, he knew this battle, no matter how difficult, was just beginning. The courtroom was heated with the nervous murmurs that accompanied every move of the hearing. Alex, a 16-year-old teenager, remained silent, his head down, shoulders hunched. The judge, a middle-aged man with a stern expression, looked at him with disdain, as if the young man were nothing more than an insignificant shadow in his courtroom. "Come on, kid, you're not going to sit there in silence forever, are you?" The judge mocked, his voice echoing off the cold courtroom walls. Eyes turned to Alex, and he felt the weight of expectations and contempt. But there was something inside him that began to stir, a flame that refused to go out. And it was at that moment, when everyone expected him to remain silent, that Alex raised his head. His gaze was intense and determined. The courtroom fell silent, the expectation hanging like a cloak. "I am not insignificant," he said, his voice trembling but firm. "I am not just a number in a bullying report. I am a person." Alex's words resonated in the room, each syllable like a hammer blow. The judge, who had looked at the young man with disdain until then, now appeared bemused. "Continue," he urged, his voice softer, almost hesitant. Alex took a deep breath, feeling the warmth of the lights on his face, but also the silent support of some friends who were in the room. "I've been bullied for years," he began, emotion spilling over in his voice. "I used to think it was normal. Being called names, being shoved in the hallways, being ignored. That is not normal. It made me feel worthless. I even thought about giving up." A murmur of shock swept through the audience. The judge, now with a serious expression, listened intently. Alex continued, his eyes burning with truth. "But I didn't give up. I found strength in the people who supported me, in my friends, in my family. And today I'm here to say that words have power. They can hurt, but they can also heal." Tears began to slip down the faces of some people in the room. The judge, in a rare moment of vulnerability, looked at Alex and said, I'm sorry. I didn't know. I underestimated you. And that was a mistake." The room fell into absolute silence. No one expected a judge, who had always appeared inflexible and authoritarian, to publicly apologize. The impact was immediate. Other young people began to speak up one by one, sharing their own stories of pain and triumph. The voices intertwined, forming a chorus of courage and vulnerability. "I was bullied too," said a girl with curly hair, her eyes shining with tears. "But I found my friends, and together we found a way to fight back. I thought no one cared," added a boy in a torn t-shirt. "But now, I see that I'm not alone." The courtroom, which once felt like a space of condemnation, transformed into a sanctuary of healing. The stories of struggle and resistance echoed against the walls, and with each new account, the atmosphere became lighter, more hopeful. The judge, now with his head bowed, listened intently, absorbing every word, every confession of pain that turned into an ode to strength. When the last voice fell silent, a respectful hush settled in the air. The judge, in an unexpected gesture, stood up and looked at everyone present. Today here we've learned an important lesson. The power of words can be both destructive and healing. I promise that from now on I will do my best to listen and understand. You are important and your voices need to be heard. The courtroom, once a battleground, now pulsed with the energy of empathy and solidarity. Alex, with a shy smile, felt stronger than ever. He was no longer just a silent teenager. He was a symbol of courage and transformation. And that day, justice was not only done but also heard and felt by all. The courtroom fell silent when Alex, the quiet teenager, finally decided to speak up. His voice, which had until then been muffled by fear and pain, echoed through the cold walls of the room. "I'm not just a number. I'm a human being, a student, a friend," he said, each word loaded with emotion. The judge, who had previously mocked the young man, looked visibly stunned. The sarcastic expressions on his face transformed into a mask of surprise and reflection. After the trial, the impact of those words reverberated far beyond the courtroom. Alex, now an inspiring figure, became known not just for his bravery, but for his determination to turn pain into something powerful. At school, he began to gather peers who had also suffered at the hands of others. "Let's create a space where we can be ourselves. A place where pain is not a burden, but a bridge to understanding," he said, as gestures of support emerged around him. The support group meetings were held in a bright room, with walls decorated with drawings and messages of encouragement. There, teenagers who once felt invisible found a home. Amidst stories of bullying, tears, and nervous laughter, Alex was always there, listening and welcoming. "No one should go through what I did alone," he reaffirmed, his voice steady and filled with compassion. Meanwhile, the judge, disturbed by Alex's transformation, began to reflect on his own actions. He remembered every derisive laugh he had let slip, how he had underestimated the pain of a young person who just wanted to be heard. Determined to change, he launched an initiative on bullying awareness and juvenile justice. "We cannot let what happened here repeat itself," he declared at a conference, his voice now filled with urgency and sincerity. The judge and Alex met at a community talk, a vibrant environment full of young people and adults eager to hear the stories of those who had fought. "Your courage made me realize that words have power," the judge said, looking into Alex's eyes. "I want to be part of the change. I want other young people to know they are not alone." Alex smiled, a genuine smile that lit up his face. "We can all make a difference. Our experiences, no matter how painful, can be the driving force to help others. Together we can create a world where no one has to feel invisible," he replied, hope pulsating in his words. Thus they became allies, joining forces on a journey that not only transformed their lives, but also the lives of many others. The judge, once a symbol of disdain, was now becoming an advocate for youth rights, while Alex, the boy who found his voice, was becoming a beacon of hope for all. And in every meeting, every lecture, and every gesture of empathy, they proved that true justice does not just reside in sentences, but in the ability to listen, to embrace, and above all, to transform pain into hope. The courtroom was heavy with silence, the polished wooden walls echoing nervous murmurs. The judge, a graying man with a stern expression, looked disdainfully at the teenager who up until then had remained in an almost sepulchral silence. Alex, a young man with eyes reflecting a world of pain, felt the weight of judging gazes upon him. He had always been the target, the lonely one embarrassed by cruel laughter and hurtful comments. Yet something inside him was about to change. The room was full of people waiting for the outcome of yet another trivial case. The judge, out of patience, decided to make a joke to ease the tension. "Look, if this boy were a book, I bet he doesn't even have pictures, just blank pages," laughter echoed. But Alex felt his heart race. It was not just a joke. It was an open wound. But then, in an act he himself did not expect, Alex stood up. The murmuring in the room ceased, all, Eyes turned to him. He took a deep breath, feeling the heat of indignation and pain transforming into courage. "Your Honor, may I speak?" His voice, initially trembling, gained strength. "I am not a blank book. I am the story of many young people who suffer in silence. And I am tired of being the joke." The judge, surprised, raised an eyebrow and leaned slightly forward, intrigued. "Go on, young man. What do you have to say?" Alex looked around, seeing the curiosity in the expressions of the people. He remembered every insult, every shove, and with each word that left his mouth, he felt he was freeing not just himself, but everyone who had ever been silenced. Bullying is not just a joke, it's a wound, and like wounds, they leave scars. I am one of those scars, but I want them to become marks of struggle, not of shame. The room was in absolute silence. The judge, who had previously mocked, now watched the young man with an intensity that Alex never imagined he would receive. "You are brave, Alex, and it takes courage to talk about these things. What do you propose we do about it? We need to listen more to young people. We need a space where they can feel safe to share their experiences. The courtroom should not be a place of mockery, but a symbol of change and hope. Together we can be the voice of many who are still silent." With the judge's support, Alex began to build a network of friends, young people who also faced similar challenges. They would gather, discuss, and share their stories. The transformation of the courtroom began to take place, becoming a space where empathy and solidarity prevailed. The judge had become a mentor, guiding Alex in creating a platform for young people to express themselves, a project that spread to schools and communities. At conferences, Alex shared his story. "When I was younger, I thought pain was a loneliness. That would never end. But by finding friends and allies, I realized my voice was powerful. And yours is too." He looked at the faces before him, many in tears, others smiling, all inspired to find their voices. One day in a school, while speaking about overcoming, a girl stood up and said, "I am also a scar, and I want to fight, just like you." Alex's heart filled with hope. This was what he wished, the ability to transform pain into strength, to create a community where no one was left behind. The courtroom, once a field of ridicule, had now become a symbol of change. The judge, alongside Alex, had learned that listening was the first step to transforming lives. Together they became advocates for young people's rights, showing everyone that even the quietest voices can echo powerfully when one has the courage to speak. And so Alex became a beacon of hope, living proof that transformation is possible when we allow the voices that were once silenced to be heard.